Alright everyone, we start off today talking about William Barr's bizarre doublespeak with regards to the FBI raid and the potential indictment of Donald Trump. This case is getting screwier and screwier. Of course, Barr was a Trump appointee. Some Trump fans have problems with that, as you may see from his numerous appearances over the last few days on Fox. I think that they have good reason to be. Here's what he said, link in the description, archived of course, that he suspects that the DOJ is close to being able to indict Donald Trump, but he hopes that they don't. But he also opposes the appointment of a special master and hopes that that gets appealed so that the DOJ can continue rifling through paperwork which may be covered under attorney-client privilege. This has been acknowledged by the DOJ. Things that are not even paperwork, they're certainly not classified. You've got news clippings. This was explicitly listed within the inventory list. Melania's clothing, random books, and shit like that. And the entire case stinks to high hell. I would ask, what is William Barr, because he's not an insider directly pertinent to the case, what's he basing the belief that there is problematic material there on? The WAPO report that says that foreign nuclear secrets were in the stockpile, according to people familiar with the matter. In other words, they leaked it to the press despite it being top secret. That would be slightly problematic, and I warned really at the outset of this. I think that part of it is just to keep things sort of non-transparent as long as possible, so that the legacy media can do what it did with Russiagate, which is leak out tidbits which may or may not even be true. We have no way to corroborate the content of these classified and top secret materials anyway. He accidentally admits to one of Trump's obvious and feasible defenses. He speaks, down at the bottom of this article, they quote him, on the fact that it would be reckless, that it would be worse than actually stealing the documents if he just stood over them and said he hereby declassifies them. Well, there you have it. William Barr, former Attorney General himself in his own words, acknowledging the fact that Trump can actually do that. The problem for the DOJ in trying to prosecute Trump is that if they bring up a case, he can say, look, I deemed all of these things declassified. I can't improperly handle them if they're not classified at that time. The case then reverts to 2 points. Number one, the fact that, behind closed doors, of course, Joe Biden retroactively revoked that executive privilege over the documents, thus starting the FBI raid, etc., only, a few short months later. The problem being that Trump was not on the up and up about the fact that that had happened. That could be a problem. The second problem with that same point being there is no binding SCOTUS decision on whether Joe Biden can even do that. If he can't, and you end up with a SCOTUS case, Trump goes scot-free. The second point of attack that the DOJ and FBI can use has nothing to do with the Espionage Act, etc., because of course there is the acknowledgement that Trump, up until that point in the middle of May, had access to the documents and it was not illegal. There was nothing wrong with it. The other is simply data retention laws with regards to the National Archives. It's the Presidential Records Act. You're not talking about something at that point that is legally actionable. You're certainly not talking about insurrection or sedition. You're not talking about espionage. You're not talking about selling nuclear secrets to the Saudis and all of these other boogeyman stories that we've heard since day one. You're talking about the improper storage of documents that should have been returned to the archives. Again, with the potential defendant not actually being aware and being unable to be aware of the fact that the documents needed to be returned because there had been a revocation of his executive privilege. In either of these cases, the charges, in my opinion, don't stick. Yes, that is including even if there's a grand jury pulled up out of the population of D.C., which would look so partisan and so one-sided anyway, that if they take a flying fuck at a rolling donut and they don't make the charges stick, and Trump were found not guilty, all political hell would break loose and he would come roaring back like fucking Napoleon out of exile. They would effectively be handing him 2024 at that point, and they know this. This is why I suspect they won't indict. And this is why I suspect that the main shenanigan is to hold this over the head of the midterms. The second level of shenanigan is to allow the corporate media, which hates Trump and has no journalistic standards at this point whatsoever, can simply leak whatever it wants. We saw this before. Just so that everyone is refreshed on this. I know the Trump derangement syndrome sufferers is, oh, this time it's real. They're trying to blackpill people because, they really don't like Trump anymore anyway. Ma vax salesman, ma Zion Dawn, and all of this other horseshit that we hear. This time it's for real. Just forget about the dozens of times this happened with Russiagate or with his tax returns or with the Pissgate dossier. Just forget about the Guerrilla Channel. Just forget about every self-satirizing witch hunt of Donald Trump that ever took place before. This time they've really got him. And the legacy media is going with that same line. You've seen articles from MSNBC, from Slate, certainly from NBC and others, effectively to that same token. Fox is doing the same thing by even having Barr on there. To sit there and bloat and gloat and bleat and go crazy over this case when you're not directly connected with it makes you no more valuable in any real sense other than legal analysis based on what is being given to the public than anybody else. It gives you no particular inside knowledge of what's happening. You're going based on a Washington Post article. 3 or 4 fucking times just during Russiagate they did this. There is no legitimate reason in my mind to believe any leak that we see to the legacy media, no matter how trustworthy it may sound. It's like the boy who cried wolf. At some point people stop coming. Now if the wolf actually is at the door, nobody will trust that reporting anyway. But I don't think there is a wolf at the door. I think it's just a pile of horseshit like it has been from day one. And for Bill Barr to come out and say the quiet part out loud, almost undercutting everything else he says by saying it would be reckless if Donald Trump had simply deemed all these things declassified. It doesn't matter. It does not matter if it is reckless. Is it legal, is the question. It doesn't matter if you agree that it's right or it's good for national security or it's ethical or any of these other things. None of these things apply. This is a legal case. Of all people, Barr, as a former attorney general, should probably know this. Doesn't matter if it is deemed to be dangerous or uncouth. All that matters is whether it was legal. If you admit to the fact that Donald Trump, effectively, as a former executive, could have declassed all of these materials while in office and taken them with him, taken them home, which is what appears to have happened. At that time, up until the executive privilege is revoked, Trump can do whatever the fucking hell he wants, other than literally selling that to foreign dignitaries. There's no evidence or even a leaked claim that that actually happened, by the way. Then you have the problem of whether Biden can even strip the executive privilege. We know that there's attorney-client protected material there. We know there's material that has no pertinency whatsoever to the rest of the document haul. There are unclassified materials there. Those don't matter. Melania's underwear don't matter. Those are not evidence of a crime, unless you're saying that Trump raped his wife or something like that. That seems to be a fishing expedition. So the FBI raid has already fallen apart. The wheels are coming off this cart even faster than with Russiagate. How long is it, by the way, that we find out more about the process by which the raid was green-lighted and find out that it was a rubber-stamping, politicized process? And we don't have to speculate anymore. We just know that that is actually the case, beyond even Judge Cannon's filings. And for Barr to come out and throw the judge under the bus and say, well, I think that they should appeal the decision to have a special master. Why? The inventory list itself, both simplistic and more elaborated on, explicitly lists things that no reasonable person would find legally actionable as part of the fishing expedition that was the raid in the first place. You're talking about classified materials needing to be repatriated to the National Archives and or under the Presidential Records Act, regardless of classification. Is Melania's nightgown or a book, undescript, and you don't know what book it is. It could be Barron Trump's Amazing Adventures or something, for all you know. Or a pile of news clippings. Are those presidential records? If that were the case, then no president could take anything, any paperwork of any kind, back to their home to work with after leaving office. And if Biden has the ability to randomly reclassify material at any given time, no president would ever take anything. No president would ever conduct diplomacy. Biden wouldn't go to a foreign country and have a discussion with Emmanuel Macron or Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping because they wouldn't dare to do so because a political hit job could be incoming when they leave office. Effectively, it would pour cold water on the very concept of the executive branch as performing one of its main functions, which is the head of diplomacy of the United States. So I find this doublespeak very, very strange. The entire case is deeply disturbing, and it is a witch hunt. To be clear, it's not prosecution, it's persecution. That's about all. Peace out.